Hello everyone, this is Sunlight Kitten Sabra, and welcome back to Let's Read Tower of Secrets. When we last left off, Victor was describing the Soviet Union's situation in Iran, and now let's continue. At the same time, there is a deepening concern about the Soviet embassy. Many recalled the reason for the Shah's conciliatory gift to the Russian Emperor, the famous Shah diamond. It was his apology for the raid on the Russian embassy 140 years ago in the Tehran. Everyone in the embassy had been slaughtered, including the ambassador, the famous Russian author Griboyev or whatever. As luck would have it, the KGB was right in the middle of upgrading the embassy's communications facilities. The most secret part of the embassy had just been refurbished, and the new equipment was still pouring in. If there was a raid, the Iranians might be able to seize control of the KGB's files and equipment. A nightmare scenario. The situation could suddenly require immediate destruction of these files and equipment. Most people don't appreciate how long a time it takes to burn just a single book. However, if the system was destroyed, its restoration would require tremendous time and effort. Time during which communications with the KGB station would be crippled. And worse, a capture of the cipher equipment would jeopardize the security of the whole KGB communications network around the world. I think it'd take about 5 minutes to burn a book. What do you think? Guess it depends on how big the fire is. If it's like a small fire, then probably around 10 minutes, but if it's a big one, probably about 5. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. Anyways, the responsibility for cipher security and the decision about what to do in this situation lay with the 8th Chief Directorate. It was Victor's task to assess the problem and to lay out the options. The latest report said nothing unexpected. Nothing encouraging either. Victor had not liked the whole thing from the very beginning. He had felt strongly that the Tehran situation was too unstable, and that the cipher communications system should not have been upgraded in the first place. If anything, it should have been systematically scaled down. The odds were lousy. Victor himself was extremely vulnerable. He stood a good chance of being made the scapegoat, or at the very least being positioned squarely in the middle of the mess. I don't know how I can stand a job where you're constantly made the scapegoat. He picked up the phone and called Boss. "Come up," was the command, which actually meant down. "I need you right away." Why didn't he just say come down then? I guess they're just trying to be more secure, but that just seems confusing. Victor gathered his papers, put them in his safe, and locked the inner lock. As long as he was in the building, the outer door could remain open. He took the stairs down to 2 floors to Boss's office. Victor found Boss on the phone, as usual. Covering the mouthpiece with his hand, Boss said, "Good morning, Victor. Have a seat. This won't take a minute." "Good morning, Alexei Leonovich." Victor noted that his chief had greeted him at first. Always a good sign. Another one that he had called him Victor. Office etiquette for direct address was tricky. Every Russian has 3 names: the last, the first, and the second. The last is always the father's family name. The second name is the patronymic, or whatever. The final suffix indicating gender. Ovich for a male, and ova or ovina or something for a female. Calling a person by the last name could be considered either very formal, as in Comrade Shemov, or rude, Shemov. Military style, as in Major Shemov, would be viewed as uncivilized by the rest of the country, and is never used in the KGB. They are, of course, highly civilized people. The formal and respectful address is a combination of the first and the second names, as in Victor Ivanitch or whatever. used by a superior, it underlines the subordination. Friends used first names. In Victor's office, the manner in which the chief chose to address a subordinate was a good barometer of either his mood or the current status of the subordinate being addressed. So the Victor was encouraging. Most situations were more ambiguous, and it was common practice to avoid using names altogether. 5 minutes passed, and Boss was still on the phone. Victor knew Boss's penchant for using the phone as an implement of psychological torture. Oh man. He would often keep a subordinate sitting in front of him for an interminable amount of time, often talking on 2 phones at once, only to then ask why the unfortunate man's work wasn't finished on time. Whew, that's harsh. The charge was usually accurate, which added insult to injury. Even though Victor hated this manner, he waited quietly, watching the man from whom he had learned so much. Colonel Boysk, the first deputy directorate chief of the 8th CD, was a rising star of the KGB and was expected to be promoted to general at any time. His mind was uncommonly sharp, and he was capable of quickly grasping the core of a problem without missing the fine details, one of the qualities that made his subordinates most uncomfortable. His appetite for work was voracious, and he was... I honestly don't know what that word is. Indefatigable, whatever? Who cares? Capable of producing quantities of information with high speed. Undaunted by even the most convoluted problems, his ingenuity and resourcefulness were legendary. He was never at a loss for a solution. A slight, well-proportioned man of 5'3", he was like Quicksilver, the personification of perpetual motion. He had straight jet black hair, and while his features might have been called simian in a less animated face, there was an attractive intensity in his mournful black eyes, a compelling, charismatic figure. However, Victor had mixed feelings about Boysk. His style was brash, too rough for Victor's taste, and he had a not altogether admirable talent for making people forget that often legitimate complaints that they brought into him. He had a facility for getting away with murder. In short, Victor did not trust Boss. But then, distrust was standard commodity in the snake pit, as the younger officers only half-jokingly referred to the directorate.